Okay, so what do you know about acid rain? We're going to have a quick look at acid rain. First of all, a reminder about non-metal oxides. Remember, non-metal oxides are acidic. Sulfur, that's often present in small amounts, relatively small amounts, in fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas. When the fossil fuel is burned, the sulfur is also burned. And that combusts relatively easily in air. Sulfur reacts with the oxygen to form oxides of sulfur. Usually sulfur dioxide, sulfur trioxide, and we end up simplifying that to call it SOX, where X is either 2 or 3. It's a simplified version of the oxides of sulfur. Nitrogen, you should remember, nitrogen is an unreactive gas. In a car engine, when it's under high temperature and high pressure, the nitrogen that's being brought into the car engine also is forced to react with the oxygen. And again, the nitrogen reacts with the oxygen to form oxides of nitrogen. It could be NO2, N2O4, NO, various oxides of nitrogen. And again, we simplify that to NOx. Sometimes these two chemicals here are called SOx and NOx. So we've got these impurities that combust, and we've got the nitrogen that combusts to produce acidic products. That comes from cars, that might come from power stations, that might come from aeroplanes, and that might come from other engines, for example, ships and trains. So what's the issue with that? Well, if we have a look at cars, for example, and power stations and all the other things on the previous slide, we know already that they're going to be producing SOx and NOx, oxides of sulfur and oxides of nitrogen. And we know because sulfur and nitrogen are nonmetals, these gases are going to be acidic. So they go up in the atmosphere. We've got clouds, which are essentially water, and they're going to dissolve in the clouds. The clouds might get blown away by the wind, and then in a different part of the world, different country potentially even, it rains as acid rain. And the issues with that has impacts on buildings, trees, aquatic life, and directly on humans. Let's have a look at each of those. So the impact on buildings. Here you can see a picture of what's called a gargoyle. It's made out of limestone and a church in the UK. And you can see it's been badly defaced. It's probably 2, 3, 4, 500 years old. And over that period of time, the acid in the rain has started to dissolve the limestone. Limestone is calcium carbonate. And you can't see it very well anymore. Now, yes, it's a bit of an artistic loss. If it was structural, it would be even worse. It could be dangerous. So there is an impact with acid rain, particularly on things like limestone buildings. What's the impact on trees? Now you can see some trees that have been devastated by acid rain. What happens with the acid rain is it starts to dissolve the waxy layer on the leaves. The leaves can no longer function as they can, so that the tree can't photosynthesize as well as it can, and eventually it dies, all due to the effect of acid rain. Aquatics, this is slightly more difficult to explain. Acid rain falls on the land. Nutrients that wouldn't be dissolved in pure water, in rainwater, normal rainwater, in acidic rainwater, those nutrients are much more soluble. And so what happens is when that rainwater falls on the land, the nutrients fall out of the land, off the land, and wash into waterways. That means the waterways here are much more rich in nutrients, which means if you've got small amounts of algae growing, those algae now have essentially loads and loads of fertilizer. So they multiply and multiply and multiply, and eventually you get this curtain, this sheet, this layer, this blanket of algae on top of the water. What does that mean? Well, it means that light can't get to the plants underneath, so they can't photosynthesize, and the fish, the other aquatic life, see no light, so they die. And eventually what happens is this pool becomes a stagnant pool and very little life present in it. The last one is an impact on humans. People who have breathing difficulties, asthma, other allergies, acid rain exacerbates it, makes worse those conditions. And overall, acid rain, you can see from the impact on buildings, on trees, on aquatics and humans, acid rain is not a good thing and we need to avoid at all costs.